Here I am, Lace on Race, live and livid. I know that the lighting is bad. I am currently in the podcast. Why am I yelling at myself? I am currently in the podcast area of the You Belong studio here in San Diego, California, where we rent space from the amazing Nick Rock, who has created an amazing space for everyone, but for particularly women of color. I want to be able to thank her for the amazing work that she does on behalf of women in San Diego, both my cohort and more crucially, a younger cohort, creatives, writers, thinkers, dreamers. Lace on Race supports You Belong here, both as a co-working space, as a studio, as a podcast studio, and just in terms of Nick herself. She is going to be one of our community partners, but even today, we funded 2 scholarships for an amazing seminar that she and one of her colleagues put on this morning to teach young creatives and not so young creatives how to do the business end of creative work. That is where a lot of the times it can get hairy and things can go sideways. A lot of the time there are channels and people whom you know and all of that allow creatives to get a leg up in the door so that they can do their calling and do their passion while at the same time getting compensated. Black and brown creatives rarely get that, and Nick is providing a space where they can have professional results here in this podcast studio, at the studio that I usually use when I'm here at You Belong. There is a photography space. There are room for larger events, which Lace on Race is going to avail itself on. But most importantly, what Nicole does, and what I think is amazing, is that she basically says, yeah, you're not getting what you should get. You're not getting what you deserve, and we're going to make sure that you get the same thing that your dominant culture peers get. It has been an amazing experience partnering with her for the last year now. We have sponsored other instructions so that women who might not have been able to afford it can come, and they graciously let me hide in the background. I'm grateful for it. But now that I've given you all the good stuff, I want to tell you why I'm mad. If you'll notice, the title is Lace on Race is Livid, or something to that effect. And there is a good reason why I am saying why I am as livid as I am. One reason that I am absolutely livid, just far gone, is, do you remember when I told you about my Canadian friend up in Winnipeg and how she is doing amazing work, creative work, pushing the envelope and moving the needle work? She recently has done some amazing things where she has basically brought in a book and done some other creative, tangible things. In part because she's compelled to, but also in part in able to continue to doing the work that she does. She works 3rd shift in a place that is not great, but that allows her to do the work that is her vocation and call. And we have been having some very interesting conversations over the last few days and weeks. And even though it's been hard for me to talk about what one is worth, what white people are willing to pay for, not much. And yes, by the way, this is sort of an ask. How it feels to have people question both her competence and her character when she dare asks. Her readership, her listenership, her viewership is 10 times my own. She is in the low 100,000 figures when it comes to people across all platforms whom she reaches. This past weekend, after listening to me, and I have to tell you, I feel terrible about it. There's part of me that wishes I hadn't had the conversation with her at all. But she told me that after she had put out a fairly candid, there was some couching of words because she wasn't used to doing it, but a fairly candid ask where she asked for her community of 100,000 people to show up for her. And it's not like she hadn't been leaving breadcrumbs. She had talked about how if she was not able to create the funds by this admittedly crappy model that most of us use, that she was going to have to take another job, or maybe even another job outside of the full-time job she already had. So a total of 3 jobs: her creative work, her side hustle, and her regular job. And people completely ignored her. So she asked last weekend, out of 100,000 listeners and followers and watchers, she made $60 and she sold 2 pieces of art for a total of like another 150. You do the math. This is what we are dealing with right now. And we had that conversation, and I felt awful, and I told her I feel terrible, which is one reason why we are going to find a way to make my Canadian friend a community partner. That makes it harder. As a nonprofit based in U.S., it's a little harder to throw money north of the 49th parallel. But y'all, under $250 for a woman where she gets all the accolades, more than I do. Because I engage a lot, I do get a lot of direct messages. I do get a lot of people telling me, oh, really nice things. Now, some of them say really nice things, and then a week later they flounce, they blow up, shut down, or run away. But in the moment, they thank me. They say that, I've never heard anything like this. Well, if you think that I can get a swelled head from that, I want you to think about my Canadian friend who, not a once a week or twice a week like I get, but rather every day, there are people telling her how important her work is, how they would be devastated if she stopped writing or if she went off air, and how she has a moral obligation to keep up the good fight. I hope you're listening to me right now, my Winnipeg friend. They don't have a right to say that to you. 100,000 people giving $1 a month would keep her in a Tesla a week. They're not doing that. And in fact, she was, like so many other black creators, including myself, was absolutely vilified and eviscerated for bringing up money at all. I have another friend of mine who did something similar. They use they, them pronouns, so I'll use they, them here too. They have another organization whose readership, viewership, and followership is a standard deviation above my own. They did something similar, and it on this. Y'all, I know I get in so much trouble talking about money. Money, that's all you talk about, Lace. All you talk about is money. All you do is shake people down for money. Well, ick. Yeah, I do. And if I thought I could get away with it, I'd talk about it all day, every day. Because money is the crux of racial justice for white people. We have got to stop thinking that your social capital is enough, along with bubblegum and good intentions. Because lovingly, it is not. Lovingly, it is not. And that's worth talking about, because so often white people think that all they need to do is give a thumbs up, either literal or metaphorical, or give you non-verbal but very encouraging eye contact. No. It takes money. It is so discouraging to hear about black and brown creatives who are told up, down, and sideways by their white friends, "Oh no, you have a voice, we'll stand with you." When Nick Rock, who started You Belong Here, where I am in the video room, or the audio room, the podcast room, was talking about what people told her 4 or 5 years ago when she started the space. "Oh, we'll be there for you. We'll be your most ardent supporters." No, they weren't. No, they weren't. It's been black and brown creatives that have carried her through. All of the people who urged her to go out on a limb and to take a risk abandoned her, basically. This is a common theme around black and brown creatives. And I will talk about it all day and every day, because it is such a bait and switch when white people tell us to take risks, to do, "Oh, I know that this is a huge risk for you, but take it anyway." That's just unkind to say. And it's setting it up. I'm at 12:53, and I think this is an unstable connection, so I'll let go here. But I got to tell you, I am livid. I'm livid at people who let my brothers and sisters down on the daily, who consume and consume and consume and pretend that they don't know where the support me button is, where the Patreon button is, where the PayPal or the Venmo button is. You've been coming every day to this website or this Facebook page or this Instagram page, and you don't know how to support a creator from whom you consume on the daily. I'm supposed to really believe that. They're supposed to really believe that. If nothing else, we need to take a long, hard look at the disingenuousness that's embedded. And we also have to take a look at the power dynamic. How hard it is for people to do the work that they do, to open up their veins and bleed on the page or bleed on the keyboard for your aggrandizement. And white people as a group just continue to lie to them and expect them to continue making content because, we have a moral obligation to do so. But white people never seem to have a concomitant moral obligation to us. I said what I said. My friend in Canada deserves better than she's gotten from her white readership and viewership. Down here in the States, my friend deserves better than what they get. And at the risk of having you throw rotten tomatoes at me, I deserve better than what I get. As hard as it's been for Lace on Race, though, I need to say this. Yes, some of it is because I retired 2 years ago and white people punished me for that. And then the whole Holly debacle, and Holly punished me for that. But even so, The Center for Racial Equity is doing better than the vast majority of other black and brown spaces, as hard as it's been, as much as I have cried every day and apologized to my staff and leadership team, as much as I myself have looked at ads for various fast food and retail places so that I myself can keep Lace on Race afloat. We're doing better than most. And so that is why we're going to mix it up. And you guys are going to show up, because I'm tired of supplication, hoping that you'll be able to see the value of what we do. Y'all know the value of what we do. You know it. You know the value of my friend in Winnipeg, and you know the value of my friend in Atlanta. Yes, you know it. You can choose to not know it, or you can choose to pretend you don't know it. And everyone would be so sad if 3 more voices left out of the scores of voices that have left since the Black Spring of 2020. You're not delusional. You're not wrong. You're not mistaken. There are way fewer people in the racial justice and in the social justice space in 2022 than there were in 2020. And that is because white people allowed them to die. Let's say it all day, every day. White people carry the power in racial justice work. No one wants to talk about it. So I have 2 things, one to a white cohort and one to a BIPOC cohort. The first one is to white people, and I'm going to really try to get out of here in under 20. The first thing I want to say is to white people. Y'all know what kind of power y'all have to engage or to withhold funds, because you know that you are the bulk of the funds. Just tell the truth. You know that you can shape the conversations, and through your dollars you can shape and influence what is and what is not said and how it is said. That's some toxic crap, y'all. To Black and Indigenous and other people of color, we know this. And if we want to take back at least part of that power and move back into parity and mutuality, one of the things that we need to be able to do is to not depend on white people as much as we do, because we know how unreliable they are. Why aren't we funding and supporting ourselves so that we can have creative and intellectual freedom, so that we can say things outside of the white gaze? It's a both and, y'all. White people need to do this work and recompense us, because it ain't reparations and it ain't restitutions. Recompense us for the work that we do, that you consume like so many Cracker Jacks. Black, Indigenous, and other people of color need to support this work, because the dynamic is crappy when white people are the only ones who do. That is indeed a crappy dynamic that needs to be confronted. There needs to be other kinds of income streams. And to those people, and we'll talk about it later in yet another ask, because I'm going to keep doing asks. I'm going to keep doing it. I love the community that I've formed. I love the center that I have curated. I love the work I do, and I believe in it to my marrow. So I'm going to keep asking. Why don't you use government funding? Why don't you use university funding? Why don't you use corporate funding? You don't want us to do that. The minute those fingers are in your pie, they own you. Now, that doesn't mean that we are not, now that we are an official nonprofit, that we're not going to go for various kinds of funding. If there is a corporation that is in alignment with us and we're in alignment with them, I would consider a sponsorship. If there were governmental entities, and there have been, where we are not out of alignment and working with them. Same thing with university settings. But they cannot be our only source of funding. It needs to come from the community. There needs to be 3 cohorts: white people, non-white people and BIPOC and white people together, because that's a different kind of funding, a different kind of engagement. White people need to tell themselves the truth as to whether or not they want to see black and brown voices. And the dynamic, the shitty dynamic, when we've got to come to you as supplicants. Black, Indigenous, and other people of color need to take a real great look at the fact that basically they have handed over both the responsibility and the power over to white people as to how racial and other social justice spaces get funded. And then, once that's taken care of, black and brown people need to stand together, because it is indeed a mark of a congruent life, of an integral life, and of a life that is guided by ethos. I'm still mad. I'm mad on behalf of my friend in Canada. I'm mad on behalf of my friend in Atlanta. And I'm a little bit scared because I'm afraid that this live is going to make you punish me. But let me tell you, these last year and a half of punishments, that meant that there weren't as many community partners. That meant that, because it's not as though, I mean, I work under a board, y'all. It's not as though my salary is going to go up. And I do carry a salary, and I know that you guys are pissed off about that. And I do have health insurance. And I know that a lot of you are pissed off about that, because how dare I do as well as other white people? God forbid I might be doing better. And one way to punish me, to make sure that I live on the edge and am marginalized and impoverished, is to not to support the work that you say you love so much. And it's the same thing for my friend in Winnipeg. It's the same thing for my friend in Atlanta. Y'all have to stop punishing us even as you consume us like so many Cracker Jacks. I think I've used the Cracker Jack reference twice. I think I want Cracker Jacks. Y'all, I'm not trying to be difficult, but we are 4 months away from one of the most important elections since 2008, and y'all aren't ready. Y'all aren't ready. We need to get ready. We need to start not only funding MySpace, and thank you to those who have, to do too. You Belong Here is funded every month by me personally. I pay the rent here. But we can also do other things. So this is a big deal, y'all. I'm offline again, so I'm going to hang up, but let's see how much of this was able to be seen. I appreciate you all. I know this was a tough video. I'm still mad. Y'all need to live it out or go the hell.